today is all about someone who wondered if he was the right person for the job. A true underdog story. His name was Gideon. We find his story in the Old Testament in the book of Judges. And Judges tells the story of a pretty dark time in the nation of Israel's history. It was a time when God's people often turned away from worshiping and following God, and soon found the enemies around them causing a lot of trouble. The people of Israel would then cry out to God, and he would send a deliverer to rescue them. This happened over and over again. Now, during this particular time of trouble for Israel, a powerful and wicked nation called Midian became a real problem. It was so bad that God's people were hiding in caves and holes in the mountains. Every time God's people came out of hiding, the Midianites would attack them. God chose an Israelite man named Gideon to lead the charge against them. Check this out. The angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon. He said, "Mighty warrior, the Lord is with you." Did you hear what the angel called Gideon? Mighty warrior, which is kind of funny because Gideon hadn't actually done anything yet. I imagine Gideon was looking around saying, "Me?" Gideon was not so sold on this idea. So Gideon asked why all of this was happening with the Midianites. And this is the response he got. The Lord turned to Gideon. He said to him, "You are strong. Go and save Israel from the power of Midian. I am sending you." Gideon, you're going to save Israel from Midianites. You guys think Gideon was pretty fired up about this? How do you think he was going to respond? Maybe something like this. "Pardon me, sir," Gideon replied, "but how can I possibly save Israel? My family group is the weakest in the tribe of Manasseh, and I'm the least important member of my family." Did you catch that? Gideon was all like, "Not me. I can't save Israel. I'm a nobody from nowhere. I'm the least of the least of the least." See, Gideon was thinking there must be somebody better for this, right? Maybe some kind of superhero? But God basically told Gideon, "Nope, you're the one I've chosen. Don't worry. I'm going to be with you the whole time." Now, I'd like to say that from here on out, Gideon was completely settled on the task at hand. But that wasn't quite the case. Gideon kept second-guessing that God wanted to use him. In fact, Gideon asked God to actually prove to him that God was still with him and would still use him. Okay, now what happens next might be hard to picture in your head, and so I brought something to help us. Fruit snacks. You guys understand it now? No, I'm just kidding. I think it's going to be clear in a moment, though. Let's get into the story. One day, God came to Gideon. The day it arrived. It was time for Israel to defeat the Midianites. Israel had an army of about 32,000 men. That's quite an army, right? Well, not compared to the Midianite army. They were clearly bigger and stronger. Israel would need every last soldier in this battle. That's what made what God said next so unbelievable. The Lord said to Gideon, "I want to hand Midian over to you, but you have too many men for me to do that. Then Israel might brag, 'My own strength has saved me.' So here's what I want you to announce to the army. Tell them, 'Those who tremble with fear can turn back.'" Wait, so God said he had too many men? Those who were scared could just go home? Does this seem strange to anyone else? So let me ask you, how many people do you think left? Well, it tells us that 22,000 men left, leaving an army of 10,000. That's kind of like this many. Now, 10,000 men were still a good-sized army. They should be okay, right? Will you just hold on one moment? The Lord said to Gideon, "There are still too many men, so take them down to the water. There I will reduce the number of them for you. If I say this one will go with you, he will go. But if I say that one will not go with you, he will not go." So there's still too many men. You can never have too many men in your army. Well, actually, yes, you can, especially if you're trying to show that army where their strength and power comes from. So God gave Gideon a very unique way of sorting out the men who would stay and those who will go. God had Gideon take the men down to the water to drink. Some men brought the water to their mouths and lapped it up like a dog, while others kneeled down to drink. God told Gideon to keep the ones who lapped up the water. Guess how many men that was? 300. So Gideon, along with 300 men, went up against the army of Midian. But once again, God reassured Gideon that he would have the victory. Well, with such a small army, they must at least have some incredible weapons, right? Wrong. Gideon gave them the plan. They were to surround the Midianite camp at night. As soon as he played the trumpet, they were to blow their trumpets as well and yell out a battle cry. Then they were to break the containers they were holding, revealing torches inside of them. As soon as Gideon and his men did this, the other camps did so as well. The sound of noise and the flash of the lights surrounded the Midianites. We read in the book of Judges that there was so much panic that the Midianites actually started fighting against each other. And it wasn't long after that that the entire Midian army was defeated. Not with 32,000 men, not with 10,000 men, but with 300 men. And really, it wasn't even because of this. The whole point of the small army, the whole point of the trumpets and the light, was to show Gideon that God can use anyone. So I imagine that Gideon probably thought there was no way things would end the way they did when God shrunk his army from 32,000 to 300. But you know what Gideon thought that was even more unbelievable? That God would use him. Gideon was pretty unsure about God using him, and yet God called Gideon a mighty warrior before any of the rest of the story took place. Maybe God knew more than Gideon about how God could use him. Are we ever like Gideon? Or do you ever have Gideon moments? Maybe you get a part in the school play and you start to second guess how you'll learn all those lines. Or maybe you're on the free throw line with seconds on the clock and everyone watching as you prepare to take your shot. It's easy to think you're the wrong person for the job. Or maybe your friend is struggling and you feel like you should help, but you're afraid you'll make things worse. You wish there was another person who could help. What Gideon forgot was that it wasn't about the size of the army. He was able to be a mighty warrior because God promised to be with him. Confidence isn't about being the best of the best or having the most of the most. We can have true confidence because we know who we are, and more importantly, who God is. And we know that we can trust God no matter what. So today, I want you to think about this. How could God use you? In other words, think about how God made you. What are some big or even small ways God might be looking to use you? It's okay if you're not sure how you'd answer that question. We're all learning how God can use us to make a difference in the world. But thankfully, you have a place like this church and your small group leaders that can help you figure that out.